بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So we were talking about Shu'ayb alayhi salam in the book God's Emissaries. And we got to the point where Shu'ayb's people were threatening him. He sent out some missionaries and they to other regions and they killed those missionaries of his. And we were saying that the religion is not meant to stay in one place. A lot of people think that the religion is only for them, and they, only it's a special secret society only for a certain group of people, and no one else should have it. But that's not what it's intended for. Religion is intended for all of mankind. So we should want for other people what we want for ourselves. So we should want other people to know about Islam. So we got to the point where they were threatening him. They told him, basically, we don't understand a lot of what you're saying because we hear, but we're not listening. And we see you, but we're not looking at you. They're telling him that basically they're ignoring him and they don't care anything about what he's trying to say. So they're insulting him. And they said to him that we consider you to be among our weak ones. If it were not because we are courteous towards your clan, we would stone you. And you are not dear to us at all. So basically it's saying they don't care about him at all. We think you're weak. And if it wasn't because of your family is strong, we would just go ahead and kill you. But we respect your family, so we're going to leave you alone. So he told them, he said, my people, is my clan really more dear to you than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is? And do you just disregard Allah as a thing, just throw him on the side, basically? Neither had they any regard for him nor for Allah, but only for the formalities of tribal structure. And, some people, they only care about cultural practices. They care more about cultural practices than what the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Even if their cultural practices may go against what Allah and His Messenger say, they will choose the cultural practices over what Allah says. So we have to put what Allah says over everything else. And there's nothing wrong with cultural practices and cultural traditions. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as they don't exceed the boundaries of religious laws. So we have to know the boundaries that Allah has set for us by learning the ahkam, what is halal, what is haram. When we know our boundaries, we'll know if this cultural practice fits in with the religion, is permitted or it's not, and these type of things. So there's nothing wrong with it if it's sanctioned by religion, that religion doesn't go against it. It's okay. We should uphold our cultural practices and things like this. But the ones that go against Islam, then we need to get rid of those. So they only cared about the tribal structure. So he warned them, beware, for my Lord comprehends fully what you do. Fear the one who created you and the generations who have passed away before you. So they weren't able to find any fault with what Shu'ayb was teaching. So they said, they made an accusation and said, you are only from those who are bewitched. You are only a human being like us, but we think that you are a liar. So we challenge you to bring down a heavenly body on us if you are truthful in your threats. So they told him that we think you're some magician. What you are saying is some magic stuff. And they called him a liar, and they asked him to bring down the punishment. So these people were very stubborn. Then instead of, them admitting that they were wrong and following Shu'ayb, they would say, rather just bring the punishment on us. So he says, my Lord knows better what you do and whether you deserve such a punishment. When they saw that they couldn't, dissuade Shu'ayb from his mission, they sought to make sure that their own people wouldn't follow Shu'ayb. So they blocked all the roads going to Shu'ayb's house, and they waited there to intercept those who wanted to visit Shu'ayb. And they harassed those people who went to visit Shu'ayb, and they tried to convince them that it was Shu'ayb who was corrupt and was not them who was corrupt. And we remember in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the Muslims would read Quran and they would recite Quran, the people would bang on pots and pans and make noise and yell and do other things and tell people that don't listen to Muhammad because he's bewitched, he is touched by jinn, he is this thing and that thing, na'udhu billah. And, to keep people away from hearing what he had to say and for stopping people from joining his movement. And we see that this is also done by the media today, that some groups pour all their efforts into spreading false propaganda about Islam in order to deter people from learning the truth, to deter them from learning about the true Islam, the Islam that is taught by Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And people have to investigate into the matters of the religion and not fall for false propaganda. So they shouldn't just see something and say, okay, I accept that all Muslims are, for example, the terrorists. They want to say that Muslims are scary and religion teaches violence and abuse of women and this thing and that thing. But when they look into it, it's the total opposite. Islam is about mercy. Islam gives rights to women before even the West did. So many things, that are just misconceptions, but they all come from people putting false propaganda. And they're always trying to give a bad image of Islam by highlighting what, some of these people who have claimed to be Muslims have done. And they say all the Muslims are like that. But in reality, Islam is not like that. And our teachings of our Prophet are not like that. But they want to keep people misinformed, so they stay away from the religion. And they're always painting a Prophet in a bad light. And it's on us as Muslims that we need to change the perception of people by having good akhlaq with people, good morality, being nice, being kind with people. And there are some people who claim to be Muslims that have given Islam a bad image and a bad name. But in reality, these people have nothing to do with Islam, as we know. One of my teachers used to tell me that those terrorists, they have role models in their books and their religion, and they follow those terrorists because those people they are following are the same people that attacked Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. They attacked the house of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. They, they went after the people when they took Imam Ali alayhi salam, and they stole the, Caliphate, or the Caliphate is always with Imam Ali alayhi salam, but what we can say is they stole the Hukuma, the government. They took it from him. And those people who did not want to accept, the Khalifa of Abu Bakr, they went and they were killing them. And even Malik ibn Nuwayra, his wife, was killed, and his wife was raped by these same Sahaba that they're calling, the Saiful Islam, the sword of Islam, and all of these other titles, but it's more likely the Saif of Shaitan, the sword of Shaitan, if we look at what these people were doing at that time. So they do have role models, but when we look at the Islam of Ghadir, the Islam of the Walayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi salam, we do not find any of these type of things in the examples of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Only those people who abandoned Ahlul Bayt, they left the Prophet unburied and went to go steal the government position and had no care for the Prophet whatsoever or his family, and came to attack the house of Ahlul Bayt shortly after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when people know the Islam of Ahlul Bayt and they truly see what Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam have said, I believe that they would accept the beauty of their words, and they would see that what Ahlul Bayt says is right. What some other interpretations of people are saying, these things are giving Islam a bad image. So he says this is what they were trying to do to Shu'ayb. They were trying to turn people away from him, get them not to follow anything. They wanted to block them before they even heard the Prophet talk. Before they heard Shu'ayb talk, they already put a lot of bad stuff in their mind. It reminded me of my friend. I've probably said this before, but he wanted to go meet with a Shia scholar. He was like a Salafi. He's half Arab, half British. And he was saying that, I hated this guy. I wanted to attack him. I wanted to fight him. I was going to mosque to confront this Shia and all this stuff. So he said, the Salafis told me, don't go because they'll poison the food. He said, I won't eat anything. He said, they'll poison the tea. He said, no, I'm not going to drink anything. He said, they'll put the poison in the air vent, so they'll kill everybody. He said, that just doesn't make any sense at this point, So he said that they were always trying to keep him even from going there. And as I mentioned before, one of the big ulama said that, it's better to drink khamar, to drink wine, than to debate with a Shia. Also, there's another scholar I know in Iraq. He used to study in Syria. He was Sunni. His teachers always told him that the Shia have a different Quran. This is one of the things they say on us. We have a different Quran all this time. So one day, this guy, he said, I'm going to go find out what's different in the Quran. So he went to the Shia, to Zainabiyya. He went and asked for Quran. He wanted to go in and look at the Qurans. And the guy was like, ahlan wa sahlan, tafaddal, come in, look at Quran. He went through Quran by Quran, look at them. And he had his Quran. And they were all the same. He said, what is this? Like this guy is lying to me, telling me they have a different Quran. They have the same Quran. So it opened his mind a lot because of the false propaganda that is placed, that they hate Shias before they even get to talk to Shias. Or in this case, non-Muslim hates Rasulullah before they even hear what Rasulullah has to say. In this book, we're talking that the people are going to dislike Shu'ayb before they even get to him. So Shu'ayb told them, his people, he said, don't wait on the road that leads to my house, threatening those people who believe in Allah and keeping them away from the path of Allah by making it look crooked. And remember when you were few and Allah made you many, and consider the end of those who cause corruption. Shu'ayb is saying, you're trying to make the straight path look crooked. This is what people do even till today. They try to make Islam look crooked, or look backward, or look this way or that way. And they try to make it look against whatever the societal norms are, and try to push people away from Islam before they even can listen to it. If it comes to pass that a group of you has believed in that with which I have been sent, and another group doesn't believe, then I call upon you all to be patient until Allah judges between us, for He is the best judge. The leader among his people who were arrogant, he said to Shu'ayb, we shall expel you from our city, and with you those who believe, or you must revert to our religion. So we see in Quran that Allah has told us that the Jews and the Christians will never be pleased with you until you follow their ways. Say Allah's guidance is the only true guidance. If you were to follow their desires after the knowledge has come to you, you would find no one to protect you from Allah or help you. This is Surah Baqarah, ayat 120. So in this case, it's not Jews or Christians, but this is idol worshippers they will not be satisfied. People in general, they will not be satisfied with you until you follow their way. And Allah tells us this about Jews and Christians, that they will never be satisfied with us until we abandon our prophet and follow their way. But Allah says Allah's guidance is the only true guidance. So Shu'ayb said, should we revert even if we are unwilling? If we were to revert to your religion after Allah has delivered us from it, then we would be fabricating lies about Allah. So he says that, how can we, he obviously is a Muslim all of his life, but I think someone had raised their hand or no?
I got a quick question.
Okay.
Okay, so in the Quran, the people who don't want to stop following what their fathers have been doing, they have a problem with stopping what their ancestors were doing.
Yeah.
Does that also apply to like a Muslim who doesn't know why they're Muslim? Like they just do it because their parents do it?
Yeah, but in the case with the Muslims, they're on the right path, but they don't know why they're on the right path. So it's still obligated on everyone that they have to, like Usuluddin, believing in Tawheed and Adala, Nubuwah, Imama, Qiyama, all these things are essential beliefs. We have to not follow them or not believe in them just because someone else believes in them. But we have to have our own conviction and our own reasons why we believe in Allah. It's not sufficient to just say, I believe in Islam because my grandmother believes. So, yeah, they are following, a person can follow their ancestors either in the right or the wrong way. But it's whatever anybody does, they're going to be held accountable and they need to know why they do that.
So the Quran is not talking about Muslims practicing like that in the wrong way.
No. In the Quran, those ayahs are talking about following their forefathers in idol worship without having any knowledge. Yeah. Okay. So let's see here. So when he said that, if we were to revert to your religion after Allah has delivered us from it, we would be fabricating lies about Allah. So Shu'ayb, always mu'min. We believe that all prophets, always believers, and they are ma'soom. So when he is saying that we would revert back to it with after Allah has delivered us from it, he's speaking about his people. Would they revert back to the idol worship after Allah has delivered them from it through Shu'ayb alayhi salam? And he said this would be making a lie against Allah, because if you know that Islam is the truth and you know that Tawheed is the truth, and you go to something else because someone wants you to do that, you would be lying to yourself, and you would know that this is fabricating a lie against Allah, because the other thing that you're going towards is not the correct path. So he said, even if I know that that's not the correct path, would you still want me to go towards that? He said, they would be claiming that Allah has partners when they knew that he had none. And he said, it's not for us to revert to your religion unless our Lord Allah were to wish it. Of course, Shu'ayb knew that Allah wouldn't wish such a thing. So this would not happen. He said, I defer thus to Allah because Allah's knowledge encompasses all things, and he could not claim to know the fate of his or his people's faith. So he said, on Allah do we rely. Then in an aside to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, Lord, judge truthfully between us and our people, for you are the best judge. And then he said to his people, my people, do as you have been doing. I will do as I have been doing. Soon you will know who is to be struck by a degrading punishment and who is a liar. Wait, and I too will wait. So they want the punishment to come. He says, only Allah knows if you're deserving of the punishment. You wait, and I will wait. Let me do what I am doing, and you do what you are doing. Said Allah sent word to Shu'ayb that the people of Midian would be destroyed. That is imminent. So he told Shu'ayb and his followers to leave and go to Mecca. So Shu'ayb and his followers packed and they evacuated the city. Then the leaders among his people who refused to believe said to the believers as they were leaving with Shu'ayb, he said, if you follow Shu'ayb, you will be amongst the losers. So they're telling you, you're going to go with this guy. You could stay here and be prosperous and be with the society that you know. And now you're leaving with him and going somewhere. Who knows where you are going? And this guy is going to take you in the wrong path, and you're making a bad decision. You're leaving your home, your life, and everything, and you're following this guy, trying to deter them from going. So the next morning, Allah gave his command, and he had mercifully delivered Shu'ayb and everyone with him, and they got to safety. And then a massive earthquake came, and a terrible squall befell the wrongdoers on the day, as the day of the overshadowing cloud overtook them. It was a punishment on a terrible day. This is Quran, Surah 26, Ayah 189. He said, by the end's days, the day's end, they were left as corpses in their homes. And it was as though they had never lived there. Just like that, Midian was destroyed just as Thamud had been destroyed before. In all of these people of Shu'ayb, Allah annihilated or killed, destroyed 100,000 of them. Of these, only 40,000 were really evil, like totally evil people. And he said he destroyed the other 60,000 with them because they had been complacent in accepting the evil and had failed to take a stand against it alongside Shu'ayb. So we see that out of those 100,000, 40,000 were evil, 60,000, they were like, whatever, they didn't care. They were complacent that evil was happening, and they didn't take the side with the Prophet. They just said, we're okay with it, and just let it go. So they didn't say anything about the evil. But when we see that we have a narration from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that says, whoever of you observes an evil in society, he should change it or object over it. He should change it physically with his hand. If he doesn't have the power to change it with his hand, then he should change it with his tongue. He should speak out against it. And then if he cannot change it with his tongue, then the last is to object to it within his heart. And this is the lowest of those. So we should never be indifferent towards evil. If we see evil, people try to normalize evil. That way, when we see it, it doesn't do anything to us. But we should always hate the evil. We should try to change it if we can. If we cannot change it, we should speak out against it. If we cannot speak out against it, at least we can do is not agree with it and not like it within ourselves. And we can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help change it. But when they normalize the evil and the sins, this is what they want, to make people indifferent towards sins, and that we don't even care anymore about halal or haram or anything. He said the people of the woods were wrongdoers. They had repudiated Jethro or Shu'ayb, and thereby went against all of Allah's messengers. So Allah took revenge on them. In the end, the earthquake befell them, and they were left as corpses in their homes. It was as though those who went against Shu'ayb had never lived there. It was as though it was those who went against Shu'ayb who were in fact the losers. As Shu'ayb turned to witness Midian's final destruction from a distant horizon, he said to them, "My people, I conveyed my Lord's messages to you, and was your well-wisher. So I feel no compunction seeing you destroyed. How can I possibly fret over the fate of a people who refuse to believe? We mentioned that the sins of Shu'ayb's people, one of them was that they were cheating in the business transactions. They were underweighing, and they were also they had the means, they had money, they were wealthy, but they would demand the full when they buy from people, and they would cheat people when they sold to people, and they would search for the defects in the items so that they could buy their items for lesser things. We said that one of the ayats, Waylul al-mutaffifin, woe to those people who defraud in the values that they're measuring and these type of things. And according to many ayat, the one who resorts to, underweighing of things and defrauding, they don't believe in day of judgment and the hereafter. Because if the person believed in akhirah, he would know that even if he gets away with tricking someone, he would never be able to hide that trickery or that fraud from, the Lord of the worlds. He would realize that on the day of judgment, he would have to account for whatever he has earned, by tricking people or defrauding people, and he would have to make good on that loss in the hereafter. There was a butcher who was an idol worshiper, and he used to give more than the prescribed weight. When the people asked him the reason for this, he pointed up towards the idol on the wall, and he said, I give more because of this idol. When the people looked up and saw an idol installed there, and then another idol worshiping shoekeeper, he was known for looking at his idol before he would weigh his stuff. So we see that when Yusuf and Zuleika were alone, when we talked about their story, Zuleika covered her idol with a cloth, and Yusuf asked her why, and she said, I feel ashamed before the idol. And Yusuf alayhi salam said, you feel ashamed before something that has no life, has no power, no understanding, but you don't get ashamed with the Lord of the worlds who sees everything. And then he fled away from her and saved himself from what she was calling towards. It's a shame that we see that the idol worshippers are ashamed to commit sins in front of their idols, which are just blocks of wood or stone. But the Muslims, they don't have any problem sitting in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who sees everything. Nothing is hidden from Allah in the heavens or the earth. So when we know this, we would keep ourselves away from the sins. But we have to keep this thought present in our mind. So when Shu'ayb and the believers, they went to Mecca, they were greeted by the descendants of Ismail alayhi salam and the followers of Ismail, and they performed the Hajj according to the teachings of Ibrahim, and they spent the rest of their years, the coming years in that place, living with the fellow believers in Allah, and they didn't have any more persecution from their people and that they had gotten used to in their hometown of Midian. So Shu'ayb got married in Mecca, and years later he went back to that land that he left that was destroyed, Midian, and he brought some of his followers with him, and they rebuilt that city, and they repopulated that city. And his wife gave him two beautiful daughters who followed him, and they were devoted to their prophet and their father. And then after their mother died, they cared for Shu'ayb in his later years. So Shu'ayb spent long hours in prayers out of love for Allah. He would weep intensely. One day he wept until he lost his sight, and Allah showed mercy to Shu'ayb and restored his vision. But again, in the passion of prayer, he cried and lost his sight, and again Allah restored his vision. And the third time, he lost his sight again, and Allah restored his vision. And when it happened the fourth time, Allah asked him, "Until when do you plan to continue this way? If you weep out of fear of the fire, I tell you that it won't touch you. And if you weep out of a fear of yearning, if you weep out of yearning for paradise, I tell you, you will enter it freely." Shu'ayb said, "You know very well my tears are not of fear of your fire, nor of yearning for your paradise. Rather, my love for you has enraptured my heart, so I cannot wait to meet you." So Allah told Shu'ayb, "Endure in your patience. To reward you for your devotion and service to me, I will bring the greatest man alive, my prophet Musa alayhi salam, into your service." And Musa met Shu'ayb many years later. We see that this, Shu'ayb cried and he became blind, and he cried again and he became blind. He cried so much he became blind like 4 times. And some people say, this is out of his love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some people say like we shouldn't cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It doesn't look good. It's not good for people, and they shouldn't do that. And they're mourning and crying, and they're doing it too much and crying too loud and doing this and doing that. This is all for the love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which is one of Allah's most beloved creatures that He has ever created. So, what about this with Shu'ayb? He's crying until he is blind. We are not crying until we are blind. We see Ya'qub cried until he was blind. So the argument against crying for Imam Hussein is something meant just to keep this remembrance of Imam Hussein down. And when we hear the tragedies of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, it cannot help but bring one to tears, to shed tears, to hear how he was brutally massacred with his whole entire family. All the men and the women were taken prisoners. If one cannot cry for hearing the tragedies of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, then they have heart of stone. Anyone who reads these stories, I remember even giving books to some of the toughest people I have ever met in my life. They have killers, gang members, gang leaders. They're reading these books about Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and I had to give it back. I can't read anymore. I don't want anyone to see me like they felt weak if someone saw them cry. This book is bringing me to tears about what happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And some of them continued reading it, but they would read it in private when no one was around because it would make them cry. I mean, these people were killers. So it can't help but make someone cry for the love of Imam Hussein. So he says he was to meet Musa alayhi salam later in his life. And in the end of this chapter, he says, for his years of patient discourse and eloquent appeals to his people. He had to deal with his people always. That's the struggle of the prophet, is always having to go to deal with difficult people. Difficult people are always criticizing them, attacking them, calling them liars, calling them magicians, telling everyone not to listen to them, all the stuff you can think of. They're always dealing with that. And Shu'ayb earned the honorific title of Khatib al-Anbiya, or the orator of the prophets. So he would always give speeches to his people, and he earned this title. I mean, look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would make noise when he would read the Quran. They would punish his followers. They tied Bilal and put hot stone on top of him, trying to make him go to idol worship. Or they killed the parents of Ammar ibn Yasser. So all these things they would do, they would throw stones at the prophet. They would dump the guts of the animals onto him from the windows. They would throw garbage on him. They would lay stones in his way. And Fatima to Zahra, she would take care of the Prophet and remove these things from him. And she would always be there to care for him. That's why they call her Abiha, the mother of her father, because she was always caring for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the prophets always dealt with these type of struggles and things, and he was given this title because of all his many talks. He would go and appeal to them to come to worship the one God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Shu'ayb, he lived to be the age of 242 years old. So we finished here. We got many lessons from these this life of Shu'ayb. And then the next week, inshallah, we'll speak about Prophet Musa and Harun alayhim as-salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.